Hello and welcome back to the channel for a preview of One Championship's big return to the Impact Arena in Bangkok for 167 on June the 7th. That is getting a bit of a mouthful to say. But of course, you knew we were going to be back on this channel to preview this card. I did already on this channel put up a tier list where I was ranking the fights at the time. There were some different fights going on. We'll get to that in a minute. So I did already speak about most of these matchups already. You can check that out on this very channel. But I will do a little bit more of a kind of general preview, as we always do on this channel. I want to give you the reasons to tune into this card. If you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, here's why you should be checking this event out and making sure you go back for anything that you miss. So let's get into it. Of course, the big thing to talk about straight off the bat is people might be like, well, what is the main event? Because it used to be Stamp Fairtex and Denise Zamboanga until Stamp injured herself in training. Well, she didn't injure herself. She got injured in training and is out of the main event against Denise. She was going to be defending her Atomweight MMA World Championship for the first time. She, of course, was also supposed to be fighting in Denver at 1168. We don't know whether that's going to happen yet. So we'll see what happens. But instead, the co-main event, which was a title fight anyway, is now going to be the main event. But we will talk about that last, as we usually do with these cards. Let me pull up the match card. Match card? That's more of a pro wrestling term, isn't it? But I guess it kind of works. Let's pull up the fight card graphic. That works a little bit better. Let's go with that, right? I should probably switch myself over, actually, because I'm blocking one of the fights. Professional and all that. All right, here we go. I'm just getting back into the swing thing, guys. It feels like we've been gone for a long time. So now bout number one is a fight that I believe was just added, like, when this graphic came out, which was 2 hours ago. So I didn't know this was happening, but we've got Johan Estupinan taking on Zafar Sayik in a bantamweight Muay Thai. Never mad with a bit of Muay Thai to open up the card. Never can be. Bout number two is Zuki Hirata versus Victoria Souza in atomweight MMA. Now, in my opinion, there's not a whole lot to be excited about with this fight, in my personal opinion. It's a really, really important one for Zuki Hirata, who, of course, is held quite highly in One Championship, tipped for big things. And her last couple of performances have not been great. Her losses to Ayaka Miura and Hamsio Hee, of course, I'm talking about. They haven't just been not great results. I don't think they've been very good performances for Itsuki. So I think this is a really important one for her to get back in the win column. And to be honest, if it's anything less than a fairly impressive or decisive win, then I don't think this is going to be a positive for Itsuki personally. So that's what I'm looking for in bout number two. Bout number three, flyweight Muay Thai, Johan Ghazali takes on Nguyen Tran Doi Nhat from Vietnam. Johan Ghazali, of course, was the breakout star last year for One Championship. I believe he won 2023 breakout of the year or something along those lines, right? Undefeated teenager phenom, of course, earned himself a spot on the main roster after some very, very impressive wins on the Friday Fight Series. And then he beat Edgar Tabarez at the end of last year to properly announce himself on the main roster. Looks to continue that fine form. I think Nguyen Tran doing that might not be, I don't expect him to give Ghazali a ton of problems, but I do think it's a logical step up from the competition he has been facing so far. Nguyen's fought some tough guys, has got a lot of experience in One Championship. So whilst, I can understand people might want to see Ghazali facing tougher opponents already, I don't think this is a bad next step for him. And I think that you don't necessarily need to rush him either. He's so young, even if he has proven himself to be incredibly skilled already. So I like that fight personally, although I do expect Johan Ghazali to come through fairly convincingly. Bout number four, another one of the fights that I am most looking forward to on this card. You've got Antonio Marmarella, who, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about, taking on the debuting Adrian Lee, making his pro debut in MMA. Of course, one of the Lee siblings, the younger brother of Christian and Angela, one former world champion in one current two-weight world champion in one in Christian's case, and of course the late Victoria Lee, who tragically passed at the end of 2022. Adrian is the first of the Lee family to be back in competition since that event And so you know that there's going to be a ton of emotion going into this one, probably a lot of pressure on his shoulders. So very, very interested to see how he handles that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs and attention on him because he is part of the Lee family and he's making his debut, and people will have high hopes for him. So I'm excited to see how he does. We've been hearing about Adrian for a long time, some of the things he's been able to do before turning pro, mostly from Christian, who speaks very, very highly of him. So I'm just excited, away from all the narratives of the Lee family, whatever. This guy is a prospect. I'm excited to see what he can do. Excited to finally watch him compete in one championship. Bout number 5, you've got Denise Ambawanga taking on Noelle Grandjean. Now, of course, Denise was supposed to be fighting in the main event against Stamp. If you watched my video where I reacted to the news of Stamp's injury, I said that personally I felt like Denise should be given an interim title shot because she's missed out on title shots in the past when she was supposed to fight Angela Lee, and that didn't end up happening. And so I felt it would have been harsh on Denise to give her just a regular fight, and that unfortunately seems like what she has been given. But at the same time, if it means keeping Denise active or keeping her on the shelf, then maybe taking a fight is the best decision to make. Of course, she will get paid, which is, believe it or not, pretty important. And like I said, it keeps her active, and she hasn't been super active as of late. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I would expect her to beat Noelle Grandjean and hopefully get that rematch booked in with Stamp whenever Stamp is back ready to fight. Bout number 6, I believe this was the only fight, spoilers for the tier list video, the only fight I put into the very, very top tier of that list. And that is a featherweight kickboxing bout between Sitachai and Masaki Nori. Now, why is this one so exciting? Sitachai is a legend of the sport, a veteran of one championship, fought the very, very best names, and really only loses to the very, very top guys, right? Your Chingiz Alazovs, of course, the champion in this division. Your Super Bonds, the interim champion in this division. Marat Grigorian, multiple-time title challenger, former Glory champion, of course. And so Masaki Nori is coming over, big star in Japan, making his debut in one championship. Now, I've got to be honest, not too familiar with Nori. My experience with covering striking sports is through one championship. So that is what I get exposed to. And of course, I keep my eye out for other stuff as well. But I don't know how well Noiri is going to do in one championship personally, which is maybe why I'm so excited for it. See him come up against a guy like Sitachai, who I think is a perfect test. Like I said, Sitachai only tends to lose to the very, very top guys in the division, and even then, they're competitive fights. So this is a really, really good test for Noiri, and buzzing for this fight indeed. Bout number 7, another one. I guess I'm going to say this for every fight from here on out because they're all bangers in my opinion. Bout number 7, another MMA debut. This one is for Cade Ruotolo as he takes on Blake Cooper in the lightweight division. Cade, of course, is the one lightweight submission grappling world champion. He's been flirting with coming over to MMA for quite some time now. And finally, we are going to get to see it. I'm very, very excited for this because I know that he's been working on his striking for quite some time. And I think that his grappling style will translate very, very well to the MMA game. He is not the kind of grappler that is going to take 8 minutes of a 10-minute match to set up a submission or even try and win on the scorecards. Both him and Ty are incredibly aggressive from the opening bell in their grappling matchups. They constantly chain attacks, submission threats, basically just keep their opponents on the back foot, keep them guessing, and don't let them get any of their offense in. And so I think that urgency, that pressure that they both Cade and Ty have will make their grappling transition quite well over to MMA. So I'm very excited. Of course, the big question is how well does his striking improve or transition over, I guess. So we will find that out, but I'm very, very excited to see how this comes together. And I think that Blake Cooper is a decent opponent for an MMA debut as well. Bout number 8, the return of the Hitman, Liam Harrison. You know I'm excited for this one. I mean, come on. It's the Hitman, right? He has been gone since one on Prime Video 1, I believe, where he fought Nongo for the Bantamweight Muay Thai title and, of course, suffered that devastating knee injury. It's been out ever since then. The return was scheduled and pushed back and scheduled and pushed back, and then maybe it was never going to happen. But it is happening on June 7th at the Impact Arena in Bangkok, where he takes on Japan's Katsuki Kitano. Harrison is, of course, double booked to face Sexan in Denver at 1168, which is the one that we're really going to get excited about. But, he still needs to beat Kitano, of course. And we need to see how he looks after all this time away. I don't have any doubts personally that we will, are we going to see the best Liam Harrison ever? Probably not. I think he would admit that. But will we see, some resemblance of the Hitman? For sure. I think so. Even if he is still hurting from his beloved Leeds not winning the playoff final. I apologize for that one, Liam. That was a low blow. Bout number 9, Mikey Musumeci versus Gabriel Souza, bantamweight submission grappling. Of course, Mikey is the flyweight champion. He will not be defending his title in this matchup, but he's moving up a weight class to take on an opponent that he has history with. I understand people's criticisms of some of these submission grappling contests sometimes. When you look at the champions, your Musumeci's, your Ruotolos, even Daniel Kelly to some extent, they feel a little bit like mismatches. Well, mismatch, this one is certainly not, because Gabriel Souza was the last man to beat Mikey Musumeci 3 years ago. He submitted Musumeci in, I believe it was like the 11th minute of a 15-minute contest. So, of course, Musumeci has been out for revenge ever since. He's put together an insane winning streak ever since then. I can't remember how many it is that he's won in a row, like 10 or 11, I think. Of course, a lot of those are in one championship. So he's out for revenge on Souza, and I'm excited to see it. I'm not super familiar with Souza or his game, but of course, he holds a win over Musumeci, so you better believe he knows a thing or two. So excited for that one. Co-main event, flyweight kickboxing. The Iron Man Rodtang Jitmanon is back in action against Dennis Puric, a man that's been calling out Rodtang for quite some time. The intensity here makes this a fantastic co-main event. I would have rather have seen Dennis challenge for Rodtang's Muay Thai title personally, but I understand why this one is a kickboxing bout. Potentially the Iron Man getting a little bit of kickboxing under his belt before a potential very, very big fight that is coming up soon. And Puric was going to take this fight regardless. If you've heard him speak, then you know that for a fact. I think that this one is super interesting because Dennis has trash talked Rodtang, but it comes from a place of respect. He knows how good Rodtang is, and he doesn't think that Rodtang has been kind of showing that in his recent fights, not facing the level of opposition that he should be. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out whether that motivates Rodtang to be back at his best, or whether Dennis sees something that he thinks he can capitalize on. I've just realized I've kept this on this graphic the whole time instead of switching over to the official graphic on the one website. Let me pull that up real quick just so you can see the other kind of card lineup here, which we've already been through. And so here we have it. We find ourselves at the main event. Taman Chai versus Joe Natterwood. Let me pull this back to what's going on. There you go. Let me pull this back right here. So Taman Chai, the camera has gone out of focus because of that. Well, isn't that great? Let's see if this comes back. There you go. Taman Chai versus Joe Natterwood was originally the co-main event. It is, of course, a rematch. The two men previously met at One Fight Night 15 in October in a kickboxing bout. Very, very close decision. Tawanchai got his hand raised. I know a lot of people thought that Joe should have won that fight, so there's a little bit of tension there. But I wouldn't go as far as to say bad blood, but definitely, a point to prove for both men. Tawanchai wants to show that he is the better striker once and for all, and Joe Natterwood believes that he should have won the last one. And this one is taking place in Muay Thai instead of kickboxing. Of course, Tawanchai was kind of competing in kickboxing, working his way up that ladder a little bit, but he will be returning to defend his title in this rematch, featherweight Muay Thai World Championship, that is. Will Natterwood do better in Muay Thai than he did in kickboxing? I'm not so sure. I do think that this, regardless, will be a really fun fight whilst it lasts. Joe Natterwood, Smoking Joe, puts on some great fights. That barn burner against Luke Lisi at the end of last year is still one of my favorite fights in one championship. So I'm sure this will be a great watch. I expect Tawanchai to come through it. And I expect him to get a more convincing win than he did at One Fight Night 15 in October. But I still think it's a good main event. I think it'll be a good fight whilst it lasts. I say whilst it lasts. I think it'll probably go to the scorecards. But that tops off what I think is a phenomenal card at the Impact Arena in Bangkok. Of course, it does lose a little bit of star power in Stamp becoming injured, getting injured. You know what I mean. But there's nothing you can do about that. And I think that luckily, fortunately for one championship, they stacked the rest of the card with big names. Your Rodtangs, of course, Tawanchai in the main event, but Rodtang, Musumeci, K. Brutolo, Adrian Lee, Liam Harrison, Sitichai, and Noiri. Like, Ghazali as well. Like the list goes on. So I think that this card certainly isn't lacking on star power. I mean, for a fact, you've got Rodtang in the co-main. It doesn't really get much bigger than that. So whilst I do miss Stamp being a part of this card, I think that this event is still massively worth your time. This was only supposed to be a quick preview, and we've done 15 minutes because the majority of the fights on this card are worth checking out. Go check out the tier list I did as well on this channel so that you can see, you know, if there's any fights that should take priority maybe over others. I don't know. But yeah, great card, and I'm super looking forward to this one. I imagine it will be live on a pay-per-view for people that want to check it out. All right. I'll catch you later.